Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the first day of One Mega Event 2017. The session of the day is Housing for All, and the chair of the session is Mr. Tikender Singh, Deputy Mayor, Shimla. May I now invite Mr. Tikender Singh to take over the session and introduce the speakers. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, and I welcome you all, and may I invite all our speakers. Mr. Mike Smith, who's the General Manager from FRAMECAD International, and Ms. Gaisu Manchanda, who's the Deputy General Manager, Product Strategy, Vatika Group, and Mr. Subimol Goldsmith, Senior Manager from the World Vision India. Do you want us to wait a little, or shall we? Okay, I can understand, because post-lunch sessions are all generally like this, and that too after a sumptuous lunch that you provided. So one can understand. People still at the buffet. Come, sir. So, with your permission, can we start? Or, yeah, I think we should. Yeah, because I think then we have another session to come up after this. So, as the moderator or as the chair, what I'm going to do is I welcome you all, by the way, apart from our speakers who are here. And actually, going by the profile of the speakers, you'll come to know that there's huge versatility. I mean, it's completely versatile. So when we speak about housing for all, we have experts who are from the planning department, architecture. Then we have also philanthropists who have contributed their life for building houses for the poor. And of course, as an international expert, Mike is there. So probably we are going to have this holistic vision of houses for the people. And what I'm going to do is, I do not really want to take the time in the beginning, maybe once they finish off. And then we'll have ample time for discussion, because we have lots of time. And then maybe just to summarize, we will, I will really intervene. But just to give a context, because when we speak about housing for all, we've had lots and lots of people. And you know, in India, we moved with this slogan in the early 80s and 90s, Roti, Kapda and Makan. I mean, food was essential because we've had famines. And then it was clothing. And then it was also housing. And housing still haunts us. I mean, it's still, according to one of the data that we had in the All India Mayors Conference, because I come from altogether different spectrum. Being the deputy mayor of a mountain city, I understand the sociological aspect of housing and how important houses are for the people, not just from the sociological viewpoint, but also from the political aspect. So, one of the data from the All India Mayors Conference, that still 70% of the houses are yet to be constructed. So, when it means that are yet to be constructed, we have this vision from the Government of India. We are not representatives of Government of India, so we can be as critical and as propounding as we want to be for the vision of that we have called the PMAC, the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, which is a continuation of the Indira Awas Yojana, and the vision that speaks about by 2022 housing for all. And in fact, this is also the topic of today's seminar also happens to be housing for all. But whether it's a utopian idea, how concrete it is, how objective it is, what are the subjective factors that are going to intervene into it, and what is the connection between the new Rent Act that we have? What is the connection between the land, that after all houses have to be constructed on land? And the three different aspects of PMAY about in situ development, then giving some subsidies, some loans and all that stuff, whether that is going to suffice, because we have many critiques on that. In fact, there's a whole lot of experts who have written in different journals. I don't want to go into all those details right now, because I think that is what needs to be debated, because this is something very essential. Or as what Mike Davey writes on Planet of Slums, else we'll have these sprawls coming up. In fact, in 10 million plus cities, the sprawls are increasing by gigantic proportions. I really don't want to go into all those details. So I think it's very important when we speak about smart cities, whether smart cities discuss about the inclusiveness of the houses, houses for whom, how are we to deal with the slums. And there's one thing which is missing probably today, and which we also need to discuss, and I would like one of the speakers to really dwell on that, and that pertains to our concern about smart housing. Smart housing in the sense, how are we adapted to climate change? Because the new houses that are going to be constructed, how energy efficient are they going to be? Because I told you, one of the data says 70% of the houses are yet to be constructed. So how energy efficient are they going to be? Because resilience is a very important factor, especially on the mountains from where I come, where we are in zone 4 and 5, or seismic zone 4 and 5. So what is our vision on that? I mean, or is it just blank? And lastly, I think someone has also to deal on, ma'am, probably you, on that, about the synchronization that we expect, because today in the morning we've seen the Secretary MOUD giving the keynote address, but where was our Ministry of Housing and Urban Poverty Alleviation? Because actually Housing for All comes under the domain of MOHUPA. Though we have one single minister there, but we know the challenges. We've seen the data that comes from below. We've seen the data from different states, how it speaks, and the data doesn't speak very encouraging, words. That's a serious challenge. So with those words, I think I now invite, because this is what we have discussed, ma'am, Miss Gaisu Manchanda, Deputy General Manager, and if I could just give a brief introduction. She's an architect and just hold on, ma'am, for a minute, and an urbanist heading the township design team of Vatika. We all know what Vatika is all about. And interestingly, she also happens to be my neighbor. She studied in my neighbor city, that's Chandigarh. So, and she has 23 years of experience in architecture, project management, and infra projects. Ma'am Gaisu has experienced the complete spectrum of project development and has hands-on experience as diverse as design of houses to large townships of several hundred acres. I think that's a perfect combination. And prior to Vatika Limited, she has been working with Aegis India Private Limited, where she worked as a team leader for design and construction of public buildings in Raipur, Chhattisgarh, conservation projects for lakes, and architecture for stations and depot for Kochi Metro as well. As I told you, she has graduated from the architecture from Chandigarh College, and she has also been involved in construction of prefab houses for disaster management. I think that's quite linked to my place in Ladakh and Sri Lanka, and working as lead architect with Akar Infrastructure. So, ma'am, time is yours. 10 minutes initially, maybe extended to 15. Why I wanted to want the 10-15 minute slot, because then we'll have ample time for the discussion, for real interaction takes place. So you can use the podium here, or you can use the mic there. Thank you.
Hello. Yeah, everybody can listen me, I believe. So, dear friends, and thank you so much for inviting me to this discussion. Yeah. Thank you so much for inviting me to this discussion and giving me the opportunity to talk about one of the three basic needs, as my fellow panelists said about it, like roti, kapda and makan. And yes, roti, kapda is something in India that everybody aspires, and makan is everybody aspires for generations to come. So it is the most emotional factor in everybody's life, you know. The child is born, and the moment he's grown up, he's given that कि तुझे तेरे पास ये मकान है या नहीं है, and the thing that you are going to carry it forward to the next generations. So this house or a home is the most, I would say, the emotional factor of not only India, I think it's globally. So I believe everyone around agrees with the importance of this discussion and the issue of housing in the context of the present scenario. For the user, it starts as a social crisis and turns into an economic crisis. While on the other hand, for the developer, which could be government or private, the key challenge around affordable housing or housing for all is finding a model that delivers profits, scales up to the size of covering up the deficit and enables economic impact. So it's a bit of paradox that while a basic human necessity like housing is becoming increasingly expensive, luxury items such as smartphones and electronic goods are more and more affordable. The taxi driver along will have the latest mobile technology, but then he would be probably living in a very compromised situation or a compromised solution as far as the housing is concerned. India, like most emerging economics, has been witnessing accelerating urbanization too. That's also one part of why housing for all is a concept that has to come along. I mean, last 2011 census, about 69%, the ratio of urban and rural rose from 72 to 69 in 31. So according to estimates, around 600 million people are expected to make urban India their home by 2031. And an increasing proportion of India's population starts participating in the growth story. It brings with its mounting pressure on the existing infrastructure, which needs to keep the pace with the growing demand. The current housing deficit in India stands as 19 million units, which in absence of meaningful intervention is slated to double at 38 million units by 2030. 95% of this deficit is around the EWS, which is called economical weaker section, and LIG or low income group segments. While this number is huge, there is also a substantial chunk of upper end of LIG band and lower to middle end of MIG band, which we can say comprises the emerging middle class and who are also deprived of decent living conditions. The deficit in this category is which, if not addressed, would further aggravate the unplanned and unsustainable urbanization. The lack of available housing options combined with limited income and minimal access to home finance for low income borrowers means that millions of Indian households currently lived in cramped, poorly constructed houses, slum areas and shanties. They lack access to clean and healthy environment with even basic amenities. So thus affordable housing or housing for all is an idea whose time has come, and sooner or rather later it has to be planned within the sustainable urbanization, and it will not be left with a choice until and unless it is addressed at this stage. Now there are challenges as far as I'm working as an architect with the developers organization. There are challenges with the policies, there are challenges with the real estate forum, and there are challenges with the customer identification. So what happens is, as my fellow being said, that yes, there has to be people have to come together. A lot of policies have to come together. A lot of ministries have to come together to make a solid policy. Like example, if I say parking, yes, parking. What happens? We start registering all the kind of cars that are. We start selling them. We start registering them without knowing whether there is a parking facility available in the urban scenario or not. Delhi or any other urban city is facing a lot of issues like this. We are talking of creating 19 million houses or housing for all in by 2022. But we are not realizing this, that if we create those kind of houses, are we providing the infrastructure to them? Are we providing the basic amenities to them? Are we providing the social social needs are we providing for their economical and emotional needs, or we are trying to create another pair of slums? So this is one major issue where we all need to discuss, and lot of other departments need to come together to find a solution where we have policies, we have PMY yojanas, and we had more yojanas before this, where as per census says, yes, not many people are coming forward to for approvals, even for approvals of PMY, under PMY yojanas. What are the reasons behind it? We need to discuss that. We need to know why this kind of a yojana where we have 6.5% rates and people are still not coming. People are not still coming and getting the sanctions approved, or even if the approvals have happened, why are the construction timelines so delayed? So what are the reasons behind it? So we need to discuss those kind of reasons. So that is where, many of the developers, many of the government organizations will need to come together, where they need to discuss, the problems could be timely single window clearances, it could be optimal FSIs, it could be reduction in stamp duties, it could be review of bylaws. There are bylaws which don't, as an architect, when we feel these bylaws even don't cover up the FSI that we are provided with, and then definitely development of urban infrastructure. So as far as the recently announced this Housing for All mission, policies for smart cities and Atal mission for rejuvenation and urban transformation, current approaches, though well intended, are not sufficient. Experts in the industry feel that the pace is very slow and projects are not coming up for approvals. Even in cases where approvals are coming, the project is not taking off as the demand remains slow. Some say that the government has not done categorization properly and has applied the same rules for both metros and cities. But do you think everybody wants to be linked to an EWS? Everybody wants to be linked to an LIG. This could be one of the thought lines. This could be one of the emotional factors that people are not coming for this. Because what happens is, the kind of policies that have helped, at Vatika, we researched on this, and we decided we will not be able to do up affordable housing. The reason? We would like to do houses that are affordable. That means affordable comes, but it comes after the house is done, where the house has all the basic amenities. It could be parking, it could be services, it could be the resilient structures, it could be the social scenario, it could be the neighborhoods. So this is what at Vatika we had been struggling with, whether we want affordable housings or we are looking for houses that are affordable. Are we looking at the quality of life in those houses, or we are looking at just the structures that are around a certain area which is defined, which could be merely not even a 2-bedroom structure. So these are the things which need to be incorporated with various departments, and we need to look into these matters. So that is where we, as Vatika, we are looking at things where we can develop housings that are affordable, that have low energy consumptions. But yes, we are not looking at the policies where we say this is going to be this much square foot of area without anything that serves as a social and an emotional space for a person to be. I think I'll hand over to.
Thank you, Ms. Gaisu, and thank you for giving that perspective about housing and probably also about the challenges that the present order faces. And now we have, you have a presentation, sir? Okay, you'll be speaking from the podium. Mr. Subimol Goldsmith, who is a Senior Manager, National Coordinator with the My City Initiative. It's a World Vision India. And he comes from a philanthropic background. I mean, for the past 19 years, we're Christian grassroots humanitarian organizations working through development, relief and advocacy to create lasting change in the lives of children, their families and communities living in poverty and injustice. World Vision India serves all people regardless of religion, caste, race, ethnicity or gender. And he has been working in the areas of operations, which includes as a grassroots worker in the communities with mobilization and facilitation skills, design monitoring, and presently is working with World Vision's urban initiatives in the city of Delhi as part of My City Initiative. That's a very interesting initiative. Probably I can link that to what David Harvey says about right to the city and all. Right to the city, yeah, if you know that. Anyway, innovative, having 4 operation area and working in the area of child protection and community resilience, which social, economic and disaster. That's very interesting. Working on the new urban agenda and the social development goals as well. We all know we have just come back from Quito, where we had the Habitat 3, where we have in fact formally also, the formal structure, the Indian formal structure has also raised its hands and have accepted the social development goals. How well, I mean, I think it's fascinating to have you here, sir, because if you could give that vision also, how closely we are integrated and interrelated to the sustainable development goals, and or are there challenges? So, and he has a passion to work amongst the vulnerable, especially children. We are grateful that you are here, sir. Please, the podium is yours.
Thank you, Chair, Mr. Singh, for giving me this opportunity to speak. The topic, as you all know, is housing for all. But from my perspective, or from our perspective, it is a social lens that I'd like you to bring some thoughts out of it. And also mostly on the urban, as Mr. Singh has already introduced. This is part of the My City Initiative, World Vision's urban programming, which is happening in 7 cities across India and internationally also. Urbanization is a trend that is happening. An estimate says that by 2050, 70% of world's population will be in urban. So looking into that trend, one of the aspects is housing. It's a big challenge. You all and we all know about it. So how do we handle situations, and especially from the perspective of the social lens? World Vision is a child-focused organization, so whatever I'll be talking will be basically on the child well-being aspect, but there where the families and the communities also are part of it. And then I'll be talking about various aspects where housing is inclusive. I may not be talking housing directly, but then definitely housing is a part which plays a very vital role in this development arena. I'd like to start with the Sustainable Development Goal number 11, which talks about make cities and human settlement inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. And World Vision urban programming also aims at ensuring access to adequate, safe, affordable housing and upgrade slums. Just to let you know, World Vision doesn't construct houses, but does the linkages with various schemes, with the government, with partners, with corporates, or any other entities who are into housing. The overall focus of this event that we are all hearing is smarter solution for better solutions. That's the theme here. And World Vision, through its urban programming and part of the My City Initiative Delhi, that's where I come for, is also looking for solutions through collaborations and partnership. This is very important. Housing for all, if we really need to see it happening, is through collaboration and partnership. We are also talking about cities for children, right to the city, safe city. These are certain terms that is coming up, and World Vision is also talking in line with these terms. And as part of that, we are working in the 4 domains. for the cities for children, first domain is safety. And My City Initiative Delhi is talking about safe city. You know about the city Delhi itself, so I don't need to elaborate on that. So safe city is one aspect that we have taken up, where housing plays an important role, especially in the life of a girl or a woman. There have been many instances because of that. Health is another aspect. Resilience, housing and livelihood are connected. So that's what we are looking into, along with the social and disaster risk reduction aspects also. And prosperity, where the youth, I think I'm very happy to note that the youth summit is also happening simultaneously here. So that is another aspect that World Vision is looking into. It is said that when a city prospers, so does its citizen. But provided development is intentional, inclusive. But one thing we really need to know, that the way urbanization is happening in India and elsewhere also, urbanization is very diverse, urbanization is very dynamic, and urbanization is very complex. Things are changing. 5 to 10 years down the line, with the coming of smart cities in India, the whole phase, the scenario of urbanization in India will change as well. Also, we need to look into the other aspect, like the social aspect, the political aspect, the economical, and definitely the environmental, the climate change, environmental aspect as well into this. Strategically, we need to follow certain aspects, certain pillars we need to follow. One is the social cohesion, where the haves and the have-nots need to come together to a common platform. Not in the form of demonstration, but talking together. I think that is very, very important. We need to see that. That need to be coming together. Then also for urban governance, I'm very happy to have a deputy mayor from Shimla here. I was talking with him. Urban governance is a very important piece. But then there are gaps. Definitely we need to look into that. Knowledge building, sharing of the knowledge is very important. And now with the social media and WhatsApp and all these things, we really can do a lot. So knowledge building is important. And the built environment. Madam has talked about it. What should be the built environment? What should be the criteria for a basic thing needed for housing as such? And there also has to be enabler for change. We have these pillars, the strategic pillars, the social cohesion, the urban governance, the knowledge building, as well as the built environment, but we need to have the changes factors. First important change is the partnership. The technology, really need to take advantage of the technologies which is coming, and especially in our country as well. With Digital India, I think we need to really take this up. Urban planning and design, already being talked about. There are experts here who can help us out. And definitely there are gaps in the urban policies. I think this is one aspect we really need to look into. Another very gray area, and these areas really has lot of scope and potential to boost up housing for all, is the private sector involvement. Maybe evolving business models with those who are at the bottom of the pyramid, the poor people, no? Corporates and the poor people, or the bottom of the pyramid people who are there, can really join hands in coming up with the business model. Another thing is in the stock market, coming up with social bonds. This could be another way of really ensuring housing is one part, that's what we can talk of, and also the other things. So there need to be corporate citizenship. Lot of challenges are there when we are talking about housing for all. Few aspects are the inclusiveness, the integration with various departments, including the civil societies and the others, participation and planning. The people who are really affected because of housing, I think those people should be there, who will be participating, planning, and be part of the decision making as well. And especially the children and the youth, because as you know, children and the youth form around 40% of India's population. They'll be the future, the leaders of this country to come. So we need to give them a better place. Fund channelization already being talked about. The single window approach is very, very important. The banking sectors really need to come up with affordable housings. You and me will get loans while applying for housing loans. But then those who don't have the access, those who don't have the influence, it may be very difficult for them to access these loans. Migration, urbanization, migration in and out is one of the factor also. Time frame of the schemes, we have schemes, very good schemes if you really look into it. but then we need to have a self-life. There need to be a time period for that. It just cannot go on 5 years, 10 years. There need to be self-life of the scheme. So this is a challenge because of the changing dynamism. What was required 5 years back for a housing criteria has changed for the last 5 years. Loophole in ownerships. There may be people who have got houses, but they sell the houses, they give it as rent, or move to another location. So the very purpose of housing for all is defeated. One of the reasons could be because of livelihood opportunities elsewhere. So this livelihood aspect also need to be taken in consideration when we are talking about housing for all, and the location of those houses, where this will be, is very, very important. People on the margin. When people are coming to the city, they mostly come on the fringes, in and around the city. That's where the migration, most of the bulk of the migration population are there. Are we handling people from that area also? Of course, there are changes beyond the control. Government are changing every 5 years. But then the schemes and the policies also changes along with it. So we need to look into that piece. But then, of course, we need to have an evaluation or a midterm correction before we really continue with that particular scheme as such. Then as I said, private sector involvement is very, very essential. Another aspect that needs to be looked into is the data. Adequate data is needed. Also the methodology is needed, as well as indicator. What will be an indicator to measure that housing for all is been completed, or this is the percentage that will be needed. And the networking and coalition is what is needed. Just to inform you, there are around 8,000 houses ready in the city of Delhi, but it's not been possessed because of systems and because of so many other things. It's been now nearly 5 years, 8,000 houses are all completed. But then people don't want to move out. There's so many hassles are there. So how do we handle those situations also? Then urban housing is insecure and expensive also, because many may stay in that house. Overcrowding will take place. Sleep rotation takes place. Somebody is sleeping from 6 to 5 in the evening, and somebody from 5 to again 5 in the morning. So these sleep rotations are taking place. There could be issues of protection, especially for the girls, the women, and also the boys. So the housing for all, if you're really talking about, will really be defeated. According to the Overseas Development Institute scorecard, estimates that slum population will project to be increased from 850 million now to 1 billion. This is worldwide we are talking about by 2030. That is when our sustainable development goal is also coming to an end. So around 13 years down the line, that is what it is. In conclusion, I just like to talk about regarding the implementation of the strategic development goals. It will be critical to build the strategic development goals on the MDGs, which was just completed in 2015. What happened the last 15 years? I think we need to queue and take a study of that first of all. Definitely, aspiration is to need the number of households staying in slums. It's a very good aspiration, but what will be the target set for that is very, very important. Then there are certain indicators which we need to include, which is not there now, like household access to water, pipe drinking water. Household does not have flush or poured water latrine, and houses does not have finished roof or walls. So that should be the standard which we need to be having. And also, Mr. Singh has talked about the new urban agenda which happened in Quito 2016 October, Habitat 3, and they have adopted certain resolutions out of that. And there, especially in transformative commitment for sustainable urban development, this is in the document, from point number 31 to 34 is talking very elaborately on housing, on ownership, and the policies. I think with this I'd like to end, so we'll have more time for interaction. Thank you.
Mr. Subimol Goldsmith, and also about giving the large perspective about housing, that housing doesn't just mean about 4 concrete walls, but I think more than that, about also social housing and the inclusionary nature of how housing for all should be all about. But I think there's one thing, sir, which I would like both of you maybe later on to comment upon, And when you spoke about the in-migration, actually what in India is happening, the kind of urbanization that we are witnessing is distress migration from the countryside to the urban heartland. Now, how do you sustain that, especially when you understand, when you have a perspective of providing houses to such people? Because none of you, as of now, spoke about rental housing. So maybe later on, maybe that could be, you could just dwell on that. I mean, why it is so important to have rental housing, and who are these state actors who all should really intervene into that. And now just to have an international perspective, because we all know, that's the problem with your specs. We have Mr. Mike Smith, who is the General Manager, FRAMECAD International, from UAE, and he altogether has a different paradigm of housing. He's from the technical group, and he is into the construction industry for the last 37 years, because the kind of houses been constructed, and has experience in structural steel fabrication, pressure vessel manufacture for the last 17 years, and been heavily involved in the development of light gauge steel construction system with the FRAMECAD group. Originally from England, he's moved to New Zealand in 1987 and worked in the stainless steel tank and pressure vessel construction industry. And in 1994, he accepted the role of group fabrication manager. So he has lots and lots of experience about fabrication, about construction of houses. And then in 1999, he went to New Zealand and started with what is now called FRAMECAD. Is that correct, sir? And now he lives in Dubai and is working with FRAMECAD International Middle East office. And I think Mr. Mike also has a presentation to make. So the podium is yours, and then we can go for the interactive session, the questions, because there are many things that have to really come up.
Hello all. Can you hear me? Yep. Okay. So there's the talk about the initiative for the Housing for All in India. Some numbers, 19 million. More? Is that okay? 19 million is an incredible number. From all my years of experience in the construction industry and construction of housing and in various developing markets throughout Africa and these sort of areas, when we've talked in numbers of 5,000, 10,000, these numbers are large, and most of the times these numbers don't get achieved either. But to be talking in the millions is an incredible number. So from our perspective, FRAMECAD's perspective, and what we see is the construction methods that are used in India really need to change. And this is where we think FRAMECAD comes in, and with the building design system that we have, which can allow the rapid construction of light gauge, high tensile steel structures, could be of a great benefit to the system or to this initiative. This is a very company presentation that we had, and I'm going to skip through some of the areas just to speed up the presentation. But who are we, FRAMECAD? We're a global business. We originate from New Zealand. We now have offices established in various locations around the world, in most major cities, most major centres. And the green dots there are companies that are utilising our construction system. So design, planning, manufacturing, building materials, global supply chain, and construction methodology is what our company is involved in, and is what it's all about. And what it's really doing is it's allowing developing areas to speed up the low-cost housing, construction of schooling, with a lower skilled level of people that they can use. Again, I'll skip through some of this because it's not all totally relevant. What I want to get is, if you change the building methodology that is typically used in a number of countries, and particularly here, concrete construction. It's very slow on site, and it's a heavy construction method. So if you can see, we can, our system, 25% faster than wood, some 50% faster than concrete construction, which is generally the method used here, and it's substantially lighter in product. So, from a sustainable point of view, you're not consuming the same amount of product. And further down the line, all of this material, or the structure of the housing, is recyclable. Again, I'll skip through some of these areas. Or I hope I can, yeah. So, a typical low-cost house. Now, in certain areas, I guess you're going to have, because one house is not going to fit all throughout India, you're going to have some single-level dwellings, maybe some 2-3 level dwellings, and some multi-level dwellings. Well, so the system can cover all of these types of construction methods. We've based a small model here, which is a low-cost house, it's 40 square meters. And really what I'm demonstrating here through our system, without getting into too much detail of actually how it all works, it's a rapid, efficient method of producing a large number of homes in this amount. So typically an investment setup of $250,000, you would be able to have an output of this type of production from our system. So on a single 8-hour shift, some 6.4 house lots could be produced, these 40 square meter houses. If you look at that, we just jumped out, if you look at over there at the end of the year, there's some 4,400 units that can be produced out of this type of construction method. Even if you take those and you divide that over your 19 million projected units that you need, I mean, you can start to see the colossal nature. And this, as I just shown earlier in one of the slides, was some 40, possibly 60% faster than the typical construction method already. I'm not going to go through various slides here. I think really, there's various, there's modular construction, and you can put these modular units together to make multi-level. You can add 2 existing structures with another floor level because the system's very light. So there's another area where you can add in some extra housing in parts of an already developed city. So you can rely on the current infrastructure you can utilize, and you can go up, say, another level without affecting the foundations of that current building. It might not have been designed for an extra level to be put on top, but now with the light type of technology that we have, you can use that as an option. So really, and the other major benefit of the light gauge steel frame system is it's particularly secure in an earthquake situation. This building here that you see on your left is in what's left of a building that was in Pakistan when one of the very large earthquakes had gone through. Within that country now, they are utilizing our steel framing system quite extensively. So what is the system that I'm talking about? I mean, we have a computer-aided design software that allows you to draw and design your structures. This has an engineering program with the current engineering standards that are around the world, and I believe the light gauge steel frame standard for India is just being reviewed at the moment, and I think it possibly be released by the end of this year. We would then incorporate that into our design software. This information goes to a roll forming machine that then produces the structural sections with all the connection details complete, so it's easy to assemble. So very low skilled labor can then take that material and start to help the construction activity that's required. And again, the numbers that you're talking about is huge. So keeping things fairly brief without going on and on about what FRAMECAD is and has, but what we have to offer is a system that can greatly assist this Housing for All initiative that you have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. And before we just go to the audience, there's one question that really intrigues me about your structures, because when I was going through the presentation, because in India you said the scale is too huge. I mean, ma'am said 1.19 million house, maybe more than that. Yeah, maybe more. So scale is huge. But the point is, because of scarcity of land, instead of growing horizontally, we require vertical, FAR or FS, whatever we, in technical terms we speak about. So how good are these structures suited for vertical growth? Although I saw that structure in Pakistan, I mean, that's one part. And the another thing was how resilient are they? But I've seen that structure still existing there. So maybe that is the first question that I would like to ask to you.
Okay, thank you. I guess, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of demonstration there of low single level, 2, 3 level structures. But currently, in the United Kingdom, for instance, there are a number of structures that are being completed using our light gauge steel framing system, 8 to 11 stories now. Right? There are, in certain sections of the building, there might be some hot rolled, areas for the stair or the lift elevator areas, but most of the buildings are all out of the light gauge steel structures that you see there, which significantly reduce the weight of the overall building, which then significantly reduce the foundation requirements. And some of the largest costs in some of these multi-story structures are the foundations. So if you can reduce that, you can greatly reduce the cost. From a security point of view, from an earthquake performance point of view, this is most probably the best performing materials that you're going to be able to use to build a structure from now.
But do you have do you have a stall in the pavilion? No. Yes. Oh, no. So I think you should tell.
Sorry, yes, we do have a stall in the pavilion. So if you want to visit us, we'd be happy to see you. And one of our customers that is utilizing the steel framing system from Hyderabad, which is Volta Green, they're actually co-hosting the stand with us.
Thank you so much, Mike. And now, can we have the volunteers here so that they can move the mic around? And the floor is open for questions. We have ample time. We have almost 25 minutes. So maybe 15 minutes for the question answer, and then the final wrap up.
Yeah, I have a question for Pam. Especially when you said about affordable housing, you people as real estate people are not constructing cost-wise affordable. So what is the solution to that? Because generally, as per the planning norms, you are supposed to cater for the lowest category. But when you go to see the selling price of your houses, that would be very exuberant even for a EWS house.
As per the policy norms, yes. That is what the difference I was talking about, the affordable housing and the housing that is affordable. Yes, within last 2 decades, the real estate lobby, especially the private builders, they have been, private developers, they have been moving more towards the affluent version of the society, and they've been providing for them. And that is why I believe there's a whole unsold lot, also unsold inventory available around. We were not, the developers were not actually catering for the affordable, the EWS category, though there were norms, and we were providing for a certain percentage of EWS category in each of the townships and housings and everything. But now, as far as I can talk about my company, and I think that's the world around, developers, the private developers are also coming into the housing, because we need to cater to a large, affluent, there was a time when the market was bubbling with a lot of people were buying it as an investment, but now it's a one-to-one market. So I think developers need to go to the larger clientele. But when we were studying the policies and we wanted to come to a concept where we could deal with the affordable policy, let's say PMYA Yojnas and other Yojnas, what we could find was they were not they were not thinking holistically.
Absolutely.
As Sir said, haves and have-nots have to come together. So that is where those policies don't allow us to come together. So now developers, as Vatika, we are thinking about catering to a society which is a little above EWS.
But ma'am, can I just thank you for making such a valid proposition. Number one, for the organizers, I mean, are you listening, no? The organizers, just note that point. You see, we are speaking about housing for all. But we have the developers, we have the frame structure people, we have someone who is representing the social inclusive part. But where are the slum dwellers who require houses? So please keep in mind, next time when we have such a session, we ought to have people from the sprawls. How do they view these policies? So that's number one. Number two, why I interrupted is, because in many of the, for example in Spain, and for example many of the countries we've seen, the real developers, if they construct, if they are into construction of houses, then 50% or maybe 25% of those houses have to be given for these groups. Are you ready to do that? I mean, my narrative to you, no, the point is, it's not top bottom. My point is, because what Sir said, it has to be, something you said about the haves and the have-nots have to come together. So we have the haves, but we don't have the have-nots as of now. So are you ready? If there's a top-bottom decision that, look, if this is the real estate kind of, I mean, there's a policy ordained in such a manner, are you ready for that to do it in India?
Yes, definitely. Okay. In fact, most of our townships are doing that. We're looking for, see, the structure doesn't move with everyone being together. You cannot have a society where you have one class of people staying together. It's going to be boring. It's going to be monotonous. So, as far as your question was concerned, yes, my only concern with the affordable housing policies is that we need to look at the things where we provide the, I'm not saying the minimum shelter, I'm saying the minimum social needs. That community living that Sir was talking about, haves and have-nots being together, the social organic structure, yeah.
Yeah, I'll just continue with this further, because what happens is between the haves and the have-nots are not able to, suppose if it is X amount of rupees for the EWS, they're not able to afford even that X, because their purchasing power in reality in India is X by 2. And what we actually see and read in the newspapers are developers are selling these houses at 2x rate to film stars like Priyanka Chopra and all, you know. So how do you deal with such things? Do you have some kind of checking to see that it really goes to the EWS?
Yeah, I think now EWS is not at the stake of developers' choice to be handed over to anybody. It goes back to the government, and that is what the policy says about it.
Yeah, so maybe we can have another question. Even I have posed one question to them about rental housing, so probably they have to answer that as well. About
the EWS housing goes back to the government, and it is allotted. It is not supposed to be, yes, over the period of time, it attains a cost in the same scenario. It attains a cost which is probably 2x or 3x or 4x.
Anyone else? So maybe, sir,
To what Madam was saying and to the question, I think in my presentation I said about the partnership with the corporates, where we need to do a business model evolving, where the have-nots also are a part of it, where the people who are there at the bottom of the pyramid also evolve something of a business model, because housing for all is where it meets. I think that is one aspect I think we really need to look into. It's an emerging trend, it will take some time. This is one thing. Second aspect is the social bonds that we just discussed on. Like we have infrastructure bonds, we have solar bonds. Can't we have social bonds for housing, which will basically be for the lower income group people? So where the corporates also takes part, where the government and everybody gets in. Of course, the government has been doing, like with a lot of subsidies, things are happening. But then it's really not reaching the entire group of that group of that population. I think this could be some new thoughts. We really need to think more on it. We need to have more dialogues on this, where the business model will evolve from the bottom of the pyramid upward.
Mike, you want to add something to it about the entire debate that's really come up with that question? Okay, fine. So, is there anyone else yeah, please go ahead. That's why I said we should have one of the biggest stakeholders, the slum dwellers here. Yeah, okay.
Good afternoon, I am Tarun Garg from Pricewaterhouse. Hello. Okay. Good afternoon, I am Tarun Garg from PwC, India, PricewaterhouseCoopers. So my question to all the panelists here is, like we are looking at so many issues for affordable housing, and we are talking about incorporating sustainability and green technologies in affordable housing. So my question is it really possible, looking at the current scenario, the kind of issues we are discussing, business models, we are discussing people who cannot afford, and at the same time we are saying that can we incorporate green technologies which could be cost intensive? So this is the question.
I would also like to respond to that later, because I have something there in the hindsight, and maybe because Mike, you have something, ma'am, because you are from that background. If you could comprehend that question.
Very hard to hear that.
Or can you just repeat the question, because I told you I couldn't hear, but I could comprehend what you're saying.
Okay.
So be a little louder and keep the mic closer to your mouth.
Okay. So is it audible now?
Yeah.
So
Thank
my question is, like we are doing a project in which we are discussing how sustainability or green measures can be integrated in a affordable house. So my question to all the panelists is it possible at this stage in India that we can think of sustainable or green solutions for affordable housing sector, looking at so many challenges and issues? We are talking about business model, we are talking about the cost, existing cost which is not affordable to a buyer, and then we are saying that can we incorporate green measures which will be cost intensive, which will be or may not be. So this is the question, like is Vatika as a developer thinking about incorporating green measures?
Yes, Vatika is also going green. We're enlisting our projects with green efficient projects, but yes, your concern is very right. It is not impossible, but it is very difficult with the present scenarios. That is why we've been discussing on evolving with a lot of policies, the subsidies, all the government organizations also need to come along with the developers. I mean, they don't have to, it is not a one side solution. It has to be a cohesive solution and lot of effort from many industries. Like I said, one thing. I think ma'am said that yes, EWS sells at 2x or 4x prices. What happens when it sells at 4x prices? All the Jaguars and BMWs are around the EWS. Those people who are staying in those EWS, go and look at DLF phase 3. The best of the cars, they're all 60 square yards houses sold in 1984. Not sold, exactly allotted. Allotted for probably a very minimal amount, but then sold after 5 years, because that's what the policy says. After 5 years, the person can sell it out. And now the best of the cars are there, no parking spaces. So this is where I want the policies to come, where we tell them you will be given a car only when you have a parking space. Why is that's a very good. That is what should have happened in Delhi and NCR before we started, shooting each other for parking.
Yeah, let me just tell everyone, because this is what I was.
Happened.
In Shimla, you can't buy a car if you don't have a parking space. So you ought to have a parking space. Only then you will be allowed to have that car registration in your name.
Just one thing. I think part of the question there was about being able to build at the cost level, was it? Yeah. I think the technology, our technology similar to ours, is definitely available, and it allows you to build at a greatly reduced cost now. But the developers have to embrace that technology. I think the architects and the designers need to look at how they are looking at the new type of construction that will be built, and the way to build. There's a number of countries that we are dealing with now that are looking at modularization, modular building, and building a lot of these structures actually in a factory environment, and then transporting those units and erecting those units up to multi-level, many multi-levels, and building them in a very controlled environment, which greatly reduces the cost. And at the levels and numbers that you are talking about in India, you definitely need to be looking at that. Otherwise, I think, you could be sitting here in another 10 years and you will be so far away from the numbers that you're looking at.
Just to what he was saying, another thing that is coming up is land pooling. Land is one aspect while constructing a house. So this is the government has been mooting on, is pooling the land, like in a slum area, let's say. So 5 and 6 owners comes together, the land jointly they're taking it and then constructing, of course, the vertical slums. So that is one aspect which will also bring down the tensions as such. This is one way. Another is definitely the integration piece and the collaboration piece, so that there is a win-win situation from all the parties. I think this is one thing we really need to look into. So more dialogues with the haves and the have-nots together need to be coming together. Not, see, children and youth, I just explained, no? Like children and youth also be a part of decision making, not as tokenism. They should not just be brought here and just be a part of the process, but then really are part of the design and the planning from that stage onward to the implementation as well. I think this will really help.
I think I should respond because there's something new that we are doing in Shimla as part of the Shimla Municipal Corporation. Now what we are doing is, it's something very funny and very innovative, because we are bringing in all the stakeholders to who would guide us what should be the model of your house, especially in the mountains. Now in the mountains, after 1980s, when we had this nationalization of forests, we are not allowed to cut even a branch of the tree. What to say about cutting the tree? Whereas this is a proven fact that if you have to construct a house on the mountains, we have actually shifted from our old architecture, what used to be Katkoni, to Theodore architecture when the Britishers invaded India, and eventually Shimla was made as the British capital, I mean the summer capital of British India. Now the stakeholders, once again we are going back to the same model, whereby we are, in fact, we would be asking the people to have wood as part of the construction material. Now the point is, who would provide the wood? Where is that wood going to come from? Though the wood happens to be more resilient, more climate change adaptation would be there, apart from the RCC and all that stuff. So all those experiments are taking place. Maybe it will take a year or so to really mature. But who is the one who is going to guide us which way the houses are to be constructed? Of course, we have the solar passive design and all that stuff. Like, I was really fascinated to see the kind of structures and design that was shown by Mike. But I think there ought to be a different paradigm of understanding. And there ought to be a different paradigm of understanding as far as the overall housing is concerned. So, is there any other question? Maybe then we'll go for a wrap up. Yeah?
Question to Mike. Most of the houses which you showed were, very industrialized single unit, individual. So is it possible to get a proper cluster planning, which is suited to regional levels? I mean, instead of, like he said, you have steel beams, can you have some wooden beams or somewhere, that kind of structure, can that come up in your design?
So That was to do the actual layout of the structures?
Yeah, see, your structure was basically steel as a structural member.
steel, yes.
Okay. So now, when you say it has to be sustainable, it has to take in some of the local materials. So local material, if wood was there, can the beams be in wood or some part of the structural member be in wood when you do use your material?
Okay, so I guess some of the exterior finishing or the interior finishing and alignment, that could use local materials that are available, for sure. Really, the concept of the light gauge steel frame is that you are using this high tensile steel material, and look, India is a large producer of this material already. You have many steel mills that are producing this material that is perfectly suitable for this construction method. In fact, our company is we export out of India some 30,000 tons of steel on an annual basis, right? That we then deliver to other parts of the world. So you certainly have the material available here. And ultimately, even though a steel mill in itself, it looks like a not such an environmentally friendly operation, but for the amount of product that it produces that you can then turn into other structures, it actually is a very efficient material to be used. And we find that this is the most efficient material now that's available. Yeah.
Thank you. I think we are bang on time. And
I was just waiting for the rental housing discussion which you triggered, and I think that's one of the, yeah.
Yeah, okay. And then during the wrap up, that's why I brought it. Okay, maybe sir would like to intervene.
Mr. Singh was talking about the rental housing. It's a new concept, and this was a discussion we did with Delhi Urban Shelter Improvement Board. Because when they did the survey housing, they did not take these people into consideration. That was one thing. But now the survey is about to start. So where they will also take those people who are tenants. Because what has happened now, these 8,000 houses I talked about in my speech are vacant because now people who were on rent, they're saying we are also a part of it. Now 5, 6, 7 years have passed by. No? By the time they have all the documents and other things as well. So this is happening. This is a new concept which is coming up. Where those who are also on rent also will be surveyed. So that is one piece that is happening. Another piece is how to prevent these people migration. We cannot stop migration. It's been going on all over the world from time immemorial, and this will continue. But there is a concept called urban-rural continuum, where World Vision is also planning, where they go to the periphery of the rural areas, I mean in and around the urban areas, like say Gurgaon, beyond Sonipat, Panipat, these are some of the areas, and see what could be done to prevent these people from coming, because basically they are coming for livelihood, the aspects of livelihood. Maybe that is where the agriculture piece, maybe their industries, maybe the supply chain, or all those cold chain and other things need to be looked into. But then that is again a big concept that will take some time. But the urban-rural continuum is one aspect that could be looked into to prevent the in-migration in cities.
Is that all? So, before I just thank formally all my eloquent speakers and who've really been fascinating, I hope, with the audience as well, just allow me to wrap up in 3-4 minutes, okay? And then we can go for the formals. Number one is, I think it's an important agenda as we discussed in right at the beginning of our session. But what we require is also, according to what ma'am said and what Mr. Goldsmith was also saying, is the holistic approach. It's not just about houses, it's about urban planning, how urban planning has to be done. And that's what you also said about the rental housing. And also the intervention that is required and that needs to be done is about the transport, the connectivity, about the mobility of the people. How good is this evolutionary process of urbanization? How well are we connected? Because if we don't connect the peripherals, then we'll have this in-migration taking place at a very large. So therefore this rural-urban continuum. And maybe since this was beyond our domain, we did not discuss, but this is what is happening in large parts of the cities where this contradiction is brewing between the rural and the urban, because the rural saying you draw my water and you throw your filth back to me. So that conflict also is coming up at a very large scale in many of the cities that we are finding, especially in the north. And also because when Sir said about it's a continuum of from the MDGs, what we had, the Millennium Development Goals, to the Sustainable Development Goals. How well are we connected? That's an important point. And because housing and sustainability, these are quite connected. Though we are a signatory to Quito, I was part of that delegation in Quito. One thing that has changed, in fact, and maybe that is going to prove some result, is from a different paradigm of understanding in the formal structure of Indian urban repository. That's the MOUD. Is that from the shift of the sprawls from one place to another, what was there in the BSUP, the Basic Services for Urban Poor. Now there's a shift. Now the shift is for in situ development. We really have to see how it has helped, because the basic core design of that development is that if there is X land, so divided by X by 2, half of the land give to a private developer and then redevelop that land. Whether that's a successful model or not, we just have to see, because that just speaks about development. It doesn't speak about the overall urbanization paradigm. It doesn't speak about the overall sustainability of such a structure. And then we have also international experiences that I discussed about Spain, and we don't generally discuss about China, what the Chinese are doing. Phenomenal growth they are doing, especially in the housing sector, of course, because of their national vision, what they call, because not just housing for all, but to sustain their economy of the growth that when we speak to our Chinese counterpart. So that's a different vision that we have all together, but they are part of the third world, of the developing world, so we have to keep that also in mind. But also about the critiques, especially about the people who are extremely critical about the kind of the Prime Minister Awas Yojana is shaping up. I think that also has to be kept in mind, so that we have more discussion on the topic, so that we have, because presently what is happening is, I think there are 3 phases. One is where the real developers are entering. I haven't seen real developers entering really into the eradication of slums, because after all, for capital, it is what is the profit at the end of the day. And if they don't get profit from developing these houses, then no private capital is going to move. It's a very simple logic. So then the role of the state, how much money is to be pooled in, how much money is to be poured, and in which way that money has to really move ahead. I think all that things have to be kept in mind, because that procedural aspect also needs to be kept in mind. That's why what you brought about rental housing. Okay, if you're not able to give that land, because land happens to be such an important issue. I, being the deputy mayor for the last 5 years in my city, I know how difficult it is to really have land, not just for housing, but for all those projects like mobility and all that stuff. I mean, land is such a complex subject, because you know that I don't really have to dwell on that. So how really we do intervene in such a scenario, and I think I wish next time when we have such a meeting, we ought to have those stakeholders actually about whom we are talking about. We are not just talking about, as Mike Devi writes in The Planet of Slums, the encroachment of the middle class in the cities. And we all come from that class, by the way. But where are the real classes? I mean, the real classes who really require housing, from whom the housing for all slogan is ought to attract. But where are those people? So I think that also, although they were in large numbers in Quito when I saw them, and they were extremely eloquent, and they were very panegyric in their voices. I mean, you could hear their voices. I mean, they're right, and that's how this right to the city also comes to the fore. And with these words, I think we've had excellent presentations from Mike, and I would definitely go and see the pavilion, Mike. That you and then Miss Gaisu Manchanda, and also Mr. Subimol Goldsmith. I thank you all, and I thank all the audience who are there for such a lovely post-lunch session. I know it's extremely difficult to have a post-lunch session. Thank you so much. And just to invite you, because I was not supposed to be in this session, so they've really cheated me. I am supposed to be chairing another session tomorrow. I invite you also for that session. That's the Mayor's Conclave, where the repository of this urbanization, how this urbanization is unfolding, what are the challenges, how are the SPVs moving, how are the smart cities unfolding, what are the challenges, because we've seen lots of mayors around. So I invite you all for that session also tomorrow afternoon in another hall. I don't remember what that hall is, but for the Mayor's Conclave, please do attend that as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the wonderful session. May I now request Mr. Tikender Singh to give away the mementos to our speakers.
Standing or sitting?